Liam Dugan, I suppose you call the young interested person. I suppose my question is mainly kind of to yourself, Maureen, and it's kind of like that kind of gap between, obviously the grassroots and kind of the historical, the knowledge in academia. What would you say would be the key barriers or key difficulties in connecting those two?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think that there's a couple of things there. In the early days, whenever we were taught or not taught Irish history or British history or aspects of history, a lot of us grew up having a huge knowledge deficit in the whole arena. So we would have adults coming to our courses now who have absolutely no knowledge, and they come in and they say, you know what, I don't even know my own history. So that's one of the areas. Young people that have engaged with us, many have said, I wish I'd listened more at school if they have been learning about it, but we're in a different age now, and there's different priorities, and as you look at all the different media that's out there now, we're less paying attention to what's happening at on the local level, apart from the fact that you have this huge class division again, which I've talked about, and it's not necessarily always a class division, but you have this huge gap where there are young people who don't have any hope for the future. And the courses that we're running are trying to engage young people at a different level, getting them to understand better where their roots, where they've come from, and to start unpacking some of the myths. So I suppose on a range of levels, the education system has not supported or helped us to understand the wider history, and then buying into the politics of the day as well, and the sectarianism, because in the communities there's very, very deep sectarianism which is still there. It brings me to another level of understanding our deep sectarian roots. Usually when we look at community relations, we tend to look at the historical aspects and look at today's and the more recent conflict, whenever the sectarian roots, the deep, deep theological roots go back. And that's about, hermeneutics, it's about the interpretation of the Bible. It's the way that we are and how we have read into the Bible. And again, we talk about having a secular society, but churches still have a huge contribution to make. And I think that we need faith. I'm not denying that, but I think that there's a way that the churches can take us forward. So all of those institutions and public bodies, statutory bodies, all can make a contribution to the way that we have built our own, but lived on the ignorance and not sought out. And again, just in this about the whole idea of an education system again, which actually doesn't develop our critical thinking skills. And I think that this has been played out where young people were so in a thrust. I'm probably raising a lot of hackles here, but where young people, it's the force towards an academic regime, and it's not developing the critical thinking skills, and I think that that's missing as well. And given that they've actually cut out history now from some of the universities, it's quite shocking. And that's, the need to bring the history back on the curriculum and see that it's an important part of our building and our education.
Just responding to that also, this young man's question, obviously we see this as having an impact on schools as well, on young people and young people at the margins, and somehow bringing them in, using drama, for example, using kind of heritage tours of, sites that reflect this period. Craigavon, James Craig's house where Carson reviewed the UVF, James Connolly's house on the Falls Road. There's so much history that you can see as well. And also I think the BBC, the media generally have a role to play as well in making the kind of material we have been sort of showcasing here and discussing over the last sort of 2 or 3 months, making that more readily available. And for example, there's a series called Hidden History going out from the BBC in July and August, which is looking at these kind of aspects and talking to people on the ground about their history and their area. So there's a lot of things going on there.